This is the East Idaho Prepcast on IdahoSports.com.
That's right. Welcome in another edition of the East Idaho Prepcast on IdahoSports.com, where we are breaking down District 5 and 6 activities week in, week out in the great state of Idaho. My name is Brandon Baney. We are joined by our East Idaho expert, Sean Kane. What's up, Sean?
Oh, it's a tale as old as time. We've got Hillcrest, Preston, Pocatello in the top three of boys basketball. We've got Rigby girls firing all cylinders, Madison boys playing really well too. Just basketball. This tale as old as time here in East Idaho.
Yes, 'twas the week before Christmas, and all through the East, several teams were challenging for the role of number one beast
of the East.
Yeah.
All right, Logan. Come on, didn't Logan write that one little?
Yeah, wow. He did. Yep.
Watch out, Logan.
We're just trying to up our game here at IdahoSports.com. Hey, I see some people checking in live here. Yes, we are recording this Prepcast live on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel, Facebook page, and Twitter account. Of course, you can always watch this on the replay as well. You can listen to this podcast at IdahoSports.com or wherever you download your podcasts. But if you are watching today and you've got a question, a shout out, something you want to ask us, go ahead and throw it in the comments. We'll throw it up on the screen and break it down. But otherwise, Sean, we've got a lot of holiday hoops to break down. I thought we'd start with girls basketball first, then transition into boys basketball. We'll talk about the holiday tournaments that have already taken place, the tournaments that are taking place currently, and then we'll also preview what's coming up. There aren't really any games coming up after tomorrow. Everybody will have kind of the weekend off for Christmas, and then a couple of teams will get back into it next week with some holiday tournaments. But with that said, I thought it would be a good time to take a 1 week break for the holidays next week. And then we will come back with our next episode in the new year. How does that sound?
Just magical.
I feel like I'm Ebenezer Scrooge here. And here you go, Bob Cratchit. You get 1 week off.
Hey, I got last week off. I had a great time watching the Max Prep special, Christmas special.
Yeah, the holiday special.
Clark wasn't there, but it was pretty good.
We did get some pretty good feedback on that. When we did it live, we scheduled it on a Thursday night where almost every basketball and wrestling team was competing. And so we didn't have a ton of people checking in live, but a lot of people have watched on the replay. And
yeah, that's basketball though. There's going to be games any way you slice it, but yeah, it was good. In fact, I guess I like the reactions to that Prepcast more than anything. I like seeing different coaches, athletic directors kind of thoughts on that. And it was kind of eye-opening to a lot of people. I think they're like, oh, and I'm thinking because AD side's like, what if? So that was pretty good. So it was kind of nice for me not to have to do anything and make fun of you guys, but yeah.
Right. So yeah, we surveyed a lot of athletic directors and coaches and kind of got their thoughts as well. If you haven't watched that or listened to that Max Prep special yet, you can find that on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel, Facebook page, Twitter account, wherever you're watching this Prepcast right now. We also put it into the podcast feed for the East Idaho Prepcast also. So, all right, Sean, let's dive into it. Holiday hoops. Let's talk about the one tournament that's currently happening. It is the Tarkanian Classic in Las Vegas. Rigby High School is there competing on the girls' side for the first time in school history, Sean. The Rigby girls basketball program traveled out of state to play in a national tournament. Kind of tells you where the program is at compared to where it's been in years past. We talked about the bracket a couple weeks ago where all three of the Idaho teams that were there playing, Coeur d'Alene, Rigby, and Columbia, all got thrown into the same bracket. And we kind of were secretly hoping that, okay, we want Rigby and Coeur d'Alene to match up. And sure enough, Sean, we're getting it later this afternoon, 4:05 p.m. Pacific time tip-off. That is 5:05 in the Mountain Time Zone. But here's the matchup, Rigby and Coeur d'Alene in Las Vegas. I can't wait.
I mean, hey, it's going to be a little warmer than either Rigby or Coeur d'Alene, but yeah, it could be a preview, right? It could be a preview of a late season playoff state type game on a neutral court, so those games are always interesting. You don't probably have a huge home crowd, and sometimes those gyms aren't as full, but the Tarkanian Classic in the years past, they seem to get a lot of fans come watch, a lot of different players, and it's a good place to showcase some players, right? You might have some players from Rigby, and we know Barbary and some other ones, but man, it'll be a fantastic matchup.
Yeah, this is also taking place in the Diamond bracket, Sean. This is the elite of the elite teams here. This was a gigantic 16-team bracket, Sean. 16 teams, which means 4 days of competition. This is a semifinal, Sean, between Rigby and Coeur d'Alene. The winner of this game will advance to the championship to play either Ridgeline from Utah or West High School from Salt Lake City, Utah. So, big stakes as well in this game.
Yeah, and both those teams for Utah are traditionally very good, and I think they've went to this tournament a few years in a row too. So that'll be a great matchup, whoever makes it. And I just like you get that tournament experience. You know what it feels like having to play multiple games in a row, and how that works, and some different opponents. So big stakes, but I have to like Rigby. Like I talked about a little bit in our pregame. I think Rigby's the number one girls team right now in the state. Just early gut shot predictions, but we'll have to see what happens. I think Coeur d'Alene is still a solid team, but lost some players from last year. So it'll be interesting to see what comes of that game.
Yeah, this will be really the big test, because the only other, 5A program of significance that Rigby has played is Owyhee. They hosted Owyhee back at the start of December and won 65-38. And using that data point, Owyhee beat Rocky Mountain beat Lake City beat Boise beat Coeur d'Alene. It's all this hypothetical, but now here is a hard data point that we'll be able to use to evaluate each of these programs.
Yeah, later in the season too. We've talked about before, I always take that later season matchup a little more strongly after you've had time to adjust, get players going. Just whatever sport the athlete's been playing before in the fall, kind of transitioning, and later in the season you really get that full meal deal of what's going on.
Yep, for sure. So Rigby's 2-0 at the tournament so far. Sean, they won their opener over Basic Academy from Nevada. I got to be honest here. That just sounds like one of these sham schools that was hastily Oh yeah, we're Basic Academy.
I mean, with all the names of things in Las Vegas, that's all they could come up with. Maybe Basic Foods is sponsoring them. I don't know. Nutritious meals at a quality price.
Apparently, I'm looking this up. It's the Basic Academy of International Studies. It's in Henderson, Nevada. I don't know. Anyways, shockingly, Rigby won pretty convincingly, 53-18. And then yesterday they had a pretty interesting semifinal against Monsignor Scanlon, which is from the Bronx, New York, Sean. You go from one opposite to the other. They played a team from the Bronx, Monsignor Scanlon from New York, and they won that game 55-43. So Trojans are 2-0. Coeur d'Alene's 2-0. Semifinal today.
Yeah, it's I would imagine most teams want to get to Vegas during Christmas time, right? Yeah. No one's like, no, I don't want to be in Las Vegas when it's cold outside, but it'll be interesting. I guess you never know, right? Sometimes a team could be really good. Like, you don't know, like, teams from New York typically. So I'm really excited for this Coeur d'Alene matchup, though. I think we know what kind of programs we get when we get both those teams in a gym together.
Yep, for sure. Okay, let's talk about and what an experience for Rigby too, to be able to say, hey, we beat a team from the Bronx in New York. That's a pretty cool deal. Okay, let's recap some of the tournaments that actually wrapped up over the last week, Sean. Let's start with Sugar Salem. The Diggers got into the holiday tournament action here, hosting a tournament for the first time, at least since I've been on the Idaho sports scene. Maybe they've done it in the past, but it was called the Sugar Salem Shootout. And we had a couple of teams from Utah, and then also Sugar Salem, North Fremont, and Grace were all there competing. So this was a fun little kind of 6-team round robin type tournament. good opportunity for the Diggers to showcase their facilities, get some good teams into the building as well. And so I thought this was a pretty fun tournament and something a little different.
Yeah, and we got the matchup I think we kind of wanted, right? Sugar Salem versus Grace at the end. So that's something I definitely wanted to see. And I like that Grace went up there too, playing the little bigger schools. And yeah, pretty cool for Sugar. I mean, Sugar's kind of not an unknown mecca of state championships. I think it's pretty well known, but
yeah, right.
I mean, what a nice way to highlight what's going on up there.
Yeah, so I think we wanted to see Sugar Salem and Grace, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think the matchup Coach Crystal Daly was most excited about was Sugar Salem versus Layton Christian from Utah, right? Private school from Utah. They're kind of like the Sugar Salem of Utah. That they win a lot of championships. But Sugar does go 3-0 at the shootout. They beat Layton Christian in the opener, 45-36. They beat Grace 58-41, and then they turned around and played again on Saturday. They actually played Grantsville, Utah first, and they won 54-41. And then they played Grace in the finale and won 58-41. The Grizzlies, meanwhile, they fell in 2 of their 3 contests. They lost to Grantsville 64-30. They lost to Sugar, as we mentioned. They did turn around and beat Ogden 52-23. So Grace was by far the smallest team at this tournament, Sean, and they ended up holding their own against much larger teams.
Yeah, pretty competitive scores, except maybe that Grantsville one. But I mean, what do they have? Eight girls on that bench for Grace, probably something like that. I mean, it's not a very deep team, but they're always really competitive and very strong. So good showing for the Grace up there in Sugar Salem.
Yep. And then North Fremont was at this tournament as well. Coach Ben Lenz's Huskies, they played all 3 of the Utah schools. They beat Ogden 48-22. They beat Layton Christian 45-37. They fall to Grantsville by only 5, 47-42. So you got to say, okay, this was a pretty successful tournament for North Fremont also. Now, North Fremont has taken it on the chin a little bit in non-conference play, right? They've been swept by Teton. They have been swept now by South Fremont. But again, this is where if you just look at the win-loss record, you're going to go, North Fremont's 5-6 and poo-poo it. But this is a really good team that's played a really challenging schedule. South Fremont and Teton are both teams we think are going to be contending for bids to the 3A state tournament.
Yeah, I think you've just got a conglomerate of good teams in that area, right? You've got South Fremont, North Fremont, Teton. There's a lot of good competition, and it's going to be a battle until the end. But I do like North Fremont. I like that they played a challenging schedule to start with. I don't think their record's very vindictive of how good that team is and how well they're playing right now.
Yeah, for sure. So that was a good showing by all 3 Idaho schools, Sugar Salem, North Fremont, and Grace at the Sugar Salem Shootout. Big shout out to Coach Crystal Daly and Tyler Richens, the athletic director up there at Sugar, for putting this together. I thought that was a pretty cool deal. Okay, let's go over to Wyoming, our neighbors to the east, Sean, the Flaming Gorge Classic. What a cool name. This is an annual tournament that is co-hosted by Green River High School as well as Rock Springs High School. They're both kind of close to that Wyoming-Idaho border. We had 2 teams go over to compete. We had Skyline from the 4A ranks, and we also had Bear Lake from the 2A ranks. Let's start with the Skyline girls, Sean. They go over. They go 3-0. No big deal.
Yeah, no problems whatsoever. And Skyline girls basketball, you got the Shippen sisters. You just got a lot of good pieces. They're well coached as well, and they went over there, took care of business. It's a tough team. And what I like, what Skyline girls are doing, they played this tournament. They're going to go directly in the tournament we're going to talk about a little bit later. That they're semi-hosting right up in Idaho Falls, East Idaho Shootout. I like that. I like that ability to go and be battle tough in tournaments. I think you see that trending for teams that are good and want to go to the state tournament and make deep runs as they play these hard non-conference or sometimes conference opponents in these tournaments. And I enjoy it. I like it. You get to see what your team's made of multiple times in a week, right?
Yep. So Skyline goes 3-0 at the Flaming Gorge Classic. They beat Natrona, which is from Casper, and that's probably, a bigger school than Skyline, or pretty similar. They win that 67-29. They beat Star Valley, which we know all about Star Valley from Afton, right? They win by 10, 58-48. And then they beat Rock Springs on Saturday, 52-35. Now, Wyoming basketball is nowhere near Idaho basketball in terms of talent, right? I lived in Wyoming for a while and I saw it up close and personal, but still, to go 3-0, quite an accomplishment. And Sean, in the process of that win on Friday over Star Valley, that 10-point victory, Shea Shippen became the all-time leading scorer in Skyline history as well, with 1,299 career points. So congratulations, Shea Shippen, the all-time leading scorer in Skyline girls hoops history.
Yeah, sign that basketball and put it in the trophy case. I mean, a great accomplishment. When I look at those scores, Star Valley, man, they're always really solid on both sides, girls and boys. So I think that's a quality win that will speak a lot to Skyline as they move forward.
Yeah, and don't look now, but the Grizz are 8-1. Their only loss was by 11 points to Madison, Class 5A school, and they had beaten Madison in the previous matchup. So, yeah, Skyline 8-1. They kind of had that weird year last year where they were up and down and never really could get it going, but boy, off to a tremendous start. And then on the flip side, Bear Lake was also competing at the Flaming Gorge Classic. And so if the schools that were there are kind of contemporaries of Skyline in terms of size, you knew coming in Bear Lake was going to be one of the smallest schools there. And yet, Sean, they go 3-0 as well. They beat Rock Springs 43-37. They beat Kelly Walsh from Casper 45-42. And then they beat Manila, Utah 60-34. So despite being the smaller school in every single matchup, Bear Lake goes 3-0 as well at the Flaming Gorge Classic.
Yeah, I mean, Bear Lake, is 10-2 now? So watch out. I mean, Bear Lake is kind of quietly putting together kind of a strong record and doing a good job putting up points too. They're a pretty high scoring team, I think, for that division, right? For that 2A division, I think they're putting up a good amount of points in the game. And I think if you are able to put up the points, you're able to win a lot of games. So nice job by Bear Lake.
Yeah, it is shaping up to be a 3-team race in that District 5 Class 2A hoops, Sean, for the girls between Soda Springs and Malad and Bear Lake. Now, Bear Lake already played Soda Springs once this year and fell by 8, 55-43. They will get Malad for the first time coming out of the holiday break in the new year, January 4th. That's a big game that I've got circled, but essentially 3 really good teams. 1.5 will have the chance to get the state, which means automatically a really good team is going to be left out. So this is going to be a fun conference race to watch.
Yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on that one for sure. But you got to like Bear Lake going and playing these tournaments to help their bid when it comes later in the season against these tough conference opponents.
Definitely. Let's talk about the Preston girls, Sean. They went over to compete in the Jerry Callan Memorial Tournament in Jerome. This was a 5 or 6 team affair, and basically it was just kind of a round robin. Everybody got a couple of games, but they incorporated into it some really fun competitions. They had like a 3-point shooting competition and they had all these skills competitions. And so that was pretty fun and a good experience for the Preston girls. As for the results, they go over and they go 0-3. They fall to Jerome 58-37. Jerome's really good, probably going to be at state. They fall to Mountain Home 57-42. Mountain Home's really good, going to be fighting for a spot to go to state. And then they drop a game to Filer 44-37. That was their closest game of the weekend. Preston, it's a rebuilding year a little bit, right? They're 4-8. This league is still kind of Pocatello is the team everybody's kind of put in the front, but I think it could be pretty interesting between Preston and Century as they battle to see, who potentially could finish second.
Yeah, Preston had the injuries last year and they're coming back. And I think they've got their, the team that they want on the court that they haven't had before. So I think once they get more games under their belt, they're going to be a little more competitive. And that's what you kind of see as you look through their schedules. They're getting more competitive against these tougher teams. And I think, Century and them are both I would still kind of like both kind of rebuild new, younger teams. They'll be very competitive, and kind of comes down to who can put the ball in the basket, right? Who can score the points. Sometimes both those teams have a hard time just getting the shots to fall.
Yeah, so it's going to be really interesting to see how Preston continues to progress as the season moves along, Sean. So those are kind of the girls basketball tournament results that have already occurred. Before we hop into, we've got our first comment here, Sean, from Ryan Skaggs, our North Idaho Prepcaster. You know, the North Idaho Prepcast is coming up right after this one, Sean. Ryan says, Sean Kane is getting coal for Christmas.
Well, it just, I know no one will be watching the North Idaho one, but if you guys are here and just want to stay and give them a little Christmas charity, that'd be great. I appreciate it from Sean Kane and my fans. Thank you.
That's right. We'll have to come up with a name for the Canesters or something. I don't know. We'll work on it.
Merry Christmas to you too, Ryan.
Says I need some ointment for that burn. All right. Well, we'll see if Sean returns the favor on the North Idaho Prepcast coming up here at 11 Mountain Time. No, I don't know. Anyways, my calendar.
You guys are up. Yeah,
we're up next.
I'm sure you'll talk about Sandpoint, which I really like Sandpoint girls basketball. I will have to say, as an East Idaho guy, I'm a big fan of that Sandpoint girls basketball team. So
for sure,
I'll be excited to hear about what they've been doing.
Yeah, Sandpoint, of course, beat Shelley in the girls' championship last year. Sean, Shelley just eviscerated Minico over the weekend. I was pretty surprised. Not that Shelley won, but I mean
the score, 80-44, I think it was, and Minico's got CJ Lotta, one of the best players probably in the state period. So crazy right there.
Yeah. All right. Before we preview what's coming up after the holiday break for holiday tournaments, I did want to check in on Blackfoot girls basketball really quickly, Sean, because they've been riding the roller coaster lately. They in back-to-back games picked up a 43-42 win over Rigby, right? That Rigby team that we talked about earlier, playing Coeur d'Alene today in the Tarkanian Classic. And then last night, they win again by a single point over Snake River in, they call it the Civil War. The two schools from Blackfoot, 49-48. So back-to-back 1-point wins. But what I want to point to, Sean, is the fourth quarters for Blackfoot in each of these games. In the Rigby contest, Blackfoot outscores Rigby 18-7 in the fourth quarter to win by a point. Last night, they outscored Snake River 12-4 in the fourth quarter to, again, win by a point. Now, if you're a glass half full kind of guy, you go, wow, Blackfoot really playing when it counts in the fourth quarter and pulling out these wins. If you're glass half empty, you're going, man, they sure do dig themselves into a deep hole sometimes.
Yeah, I think they've got good shooters, right? You got Marley Piper, you got Addison Tanner. They're just like good shooters, and I think a lot of times if they get hot, it's going to be hard to beat Blackfoot, right, on any night. And I just think right now those highs and lows are dipping a little bit, but you've got a good team, and we're going to talk about this all season long. Is that District 6 between Shelley, Blackfoot, Skyline, right? Those three I think are in a tier. And then Hillcrest isn't bad either, but who knows what's going to happen in that conference? I don't know if there's going to be a conference where you're battling as hard every night as that District 6 conference. Every conference game is going to matter so much. And, the Blackfoot came away with the district title last year over Shelley, which pretty much everyone probably had written in Shelley. And, who knows? But yeah, Blackfoot, 2 big wins. The one thing that is kind of interesting is Madison has beaten Blackfoot and Skyline and then lost to him. So Madison, kind of a sneaky little 5A girls team up north that is not getting a lot of recognition, I don't think, but they've got some pretty good wins. And I know it's a different classification, but Skyline, Blackfoot are good teams. So don't sleep on Madison girls in that 5A, which is dominated by Rigby, but we all know a Rigby Madison matchup can be exciting.
Yeah, yes. And Shelley already played Blackfoot once this year. In Blackfoot, Shelley won 66-38, pretty decisive. I would expect the rematch which comes in January on the 17th. I would expect the rematch to be a little closer because Blackfoot is a team under Coach Ramey Odom that just continues to get better with each passing week. So they beat Rigby by 1. Then they beat Thunder Ridge in overtime, 47-41. And then they get the 1-point win over Snake River last night. Blackfoot is on a 5-game win streak. They have not lost since they lost to Shelley. And so, yeah, Blackfoot is a team. We were on the call last year at the state tournament, right, where Blackfoot was playing Columbia in the first round, Sean, and Blackfoot kind of dug that hole, and we kept waiting for it. We're like, oh, well, Blackfoot will climb out of this hole. It's what they do, and they never did. And so that's always the danger too of digging that hole early.
Yeah, you just you're shooting, and there's not a bad shot, right? But the shots don't go in. It's bad.
Yeah. Generally, you need the ball to go through that hoop to have a chance. Okay, Sean, let's preview what's coming up for holiday tournaments after the Christmas break. Big endeavor in East Idaho, Skyline, Rigby, Idaho Falls, Bonneville, all collaborating to host the East Idaho Holiday Shootout. Specifically, let's talk girls matchups. These are brackets, so we can really only tell you what the opening matchups are going to be. But right away, Sean, on Wednesday, the 27th, Pocatello is going to play Lakeland. Battle of 4A powers. Lakeland is a team that's trying to break through and overcome Sandpoint. But this will be a good measuring stick for, okay, how does Pocatello compare to Sandpoint potentially with a common opponent here in Lakeland?
Yeah, and Pocatello is a team where I think you were pretty high on them. They've got all the pieces. They all come back, and they've you've been up and down a little bit too this year, and that would be a big win. I think they're still looking for that signature, we beat a team, we're here, we're not new, we don't want to hear this anymore. They're kind of looking for that, and I think if they beat Lakeland, maybe that's that win that catapults the Thunder.
Yeah, also in the opening round, you've got Madison taking on Sandpoint. Speaking of two teams you really like, Sean.
Yeah, that's a good one. I mean, it's hard to bet against that Sandpoint team. I think they're very well coached, and but Madison just sneakily good, and it's kind of going to be more of obviously a home game for Madison, but a tough first round matchup. We'll have to see that pans out. But I do kind of like Sandpoint coming down and taking care of business. But Madison, again, like I just said, looking at the schedule, they've got some good quality wins. We'll just have to see.
The other Idaho matchup is Highland taking on Snake River, 5A versus 3A. I actually like Snake River in this matchup.
Yeah, Snake River is just solid. They bring back a lot of those players from that championship team, and I like them. And Highland, new coach, kind of a new team. They're kind of trying to figure it out. It should be an interesting matchup, but Highland can get out and move fast. I just think Snake River's got too many shooters for Highland to really kind of keep up with the points, but interesting matchup.
Yeah, only one player from last year's varsity team is back for Highland this year. Is it Ryan?
Bro?
Pokey Bro. Yeah, is it Ryan?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Ryan Pokey Bro, and she's like their center and their best shooter. Like she can hit some threes and tough defender, and she's a fun player to watch. And it'll be interesting to see. And they got some bells, obviously on there too, bringing down the ball, and they're fast. They don't have the height that classically Highland would have, but yeah, it'll be interesting. If she can get going for Highland, then it's good. But outside of that, it's hard to find points, and I think Snake River just has too many scorers.
Yeah. And then the other Idaho versus Idaho matchup on the opening day, Wednesday, December 27th, is Teton against Century, 3A versus 4A. I like Teton in this matchup over the Diamondbacks.
Yeah, Teton's a really, really good team too. I think that's a tough matchup, and Century's just kind of young, trying to get into it, a little different look for the Diamondbacks this year. New coach Meg Fleshman. It'll be a tough game, but also games they need to play, right? How do you find where you're at? How do you find yourself as a team? Is by playing tough opponents and figuring those things out.
Yep, for sure. Other first round matchups, it's against out-of-state competition. Skyline, the hosts, they'll play Jordan, Utah. Bonneville is going to play Spring Creek, Nevada. Idaho Falls will play Elko, Nevada as well. Those are all on Wednesday, the 27th, and then bracket play will continue on the 28th and the 29th. It all just kind of depends on who wins where, Sean, at the East Idaho Holiday Shootout on the girls' side. But Skyline and Rigby are going to be hosting those girls' games there. Okay, so let's look ahead at outside of East Idaho girls basketball tournaments that are going on. Two taking place over in the Treasure Valley. We have the Parma Holiday Tournament. Parma hosts this every year. Parma, of course, is a very good 3A girls basketball program. We have one team from the East traveling over there, Sean. It's American Falls, and they will get Nampa Christian right away in the opening round, 3A versus 2A. Other teams that are in this bracket that will be good challenges for American Falls, no matter, where they stand. Also on their side of the bracket is Kimberly and Ontario, Oregon. Kimberly is a really good 3A program. Parma, of course, the hosts. Also, Weiser, a 3A state participant, is there, and Valley View, a Class 4A program, is competing here as well. So American Falls is going to get some really good competition over in Parma. Yeah,
American Falls also plays Teton tonight. So
huge game.
That's a huge game. That's a big game, and then going into a tournament. So American Falls also scheduling themselves a tough battle here for the holidays.
Yeah, the Beavs are 4-6, and they have played a gauntlet, right? They've played Bear Lake. They've played twice. They've played Malad. They're playing Teton. They've played Sugar twice already this year. They beat Sugar 32-25. We talked about that the last time we were on the Prepcast, right? They are battle testing themselves for that showdown with Snake River for the District 5 title for sure. And then the big tournament that's taking place, of course, is the annual Timberline tournament, Sean. This is taking place at Timberline High School and Bora High School. That's where you get the Timberline name, of course. Who's competing over there? Thunder Ridge is going to make the trip over. Hillcrest is making the trip over. And we also have, I thought there was one more. Maybe that's it. Just the two teams. So two teams from the East. It'll be interesting to see how each of these stack up. Hillcrest in particular, I thought got kind of a tough schedule of games, which is good because Hillcrest is, again, they're kind of in this fracas with Skyline and Shelley and Blackfoot, and they're trying to get better, right, by playing tough competition.
Yeah, and then Thunder Ridge too. A really, really good team last year lost a lot of Division I type athletes, and they're kind of in a different landscape this year and kind of battling hard. So it'll be good for them, I think, too, to just get those games under their belts and see where they're at as a team at this year as opposed to last year. Sometimes you have that hangover from last year, right? Oh, we were really good. We had these players, but now we don't. What do we do now? And what you do is you play tough opponents and figure yourselves out.
Yeah, so Thunder Ridge will play Rocky Mountain on Thursday. That's no walk in the park, right? Yeah. Rocky Mountain got all the way to the championship last year. They'll play Cuna on Friday. That's a winnable game for Thunder Ridge, I think. And then they'll play Middleton on Saturday. I think if Thunder Ridge can go 2-1, I think they can call that a successful weekend. And if they go 1-2 with maybe a close loss to Middleton, I think you could still call it a success, but three tough games. And then look at what Hillcrest got. Middleton on Thursday, Bora on Friday, Bishop Kelly on Saturday. That's a gauntlet.
Well, yeah. Welcome to Ada County. I mean, and you're playing those tough 5A opponents, and where the chips fall are good, but what a intriguing matchup to play Bishop Kelly, which, I mean, it looks pretty much like they're going to come out as the number one team in 4A there, but to see where you measure up against the Ada County 4A teams, that'll be really interesting, I think, for Hillcrest. And again, maybe just one of those wins, like, oh, we can beat them, we can beat Blackfoot, we could beat Shelley. I mean, these are the teams we have to find a way to win these games if we want to be playing later on in almost the spring.
Yeah, for sure. So yes, Timberline tournament taking place after the holiday break as well. Okay, that is our girls basketball roundup. Sean, are you ready to dive into boys hoops now?
Always.
Okay. Hey, everyone that's watching live on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel, Facebook page, or Twitter account, before we dive into Boys Hoops Talk, could you really quickly do us one small favor? Hit that like button and then share this, because that'll help everybody that's not watching live find it a little easier amongst all the social media noise. So that would be super helpful if you could do that. All right, let's talk Boys Hoops, Sean. The big story was the Pro Image Sports Classic hosted by Owyhee and Rocky Mountain last week. There was a large school division. There was a small school division. Let's start with the large schools, where you had Madison and Hillcrest and Pocatello all going over to compete. I think the surprising result we have to start with is Hillcrest going 0-3, Sean. Now, these were top of the line teams they were playing, but they lose to Salesian College Prep from California by 3, 60-57. Then they fall to Ironwood, Arizona, 67-61. And then they lost to Sheldon, California in overtime, 82-71. So 3 losses, but 3 games where they were right there competing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure these teams coming in knew Hillcrest, right? You're the defending champs. They're going to give you your best game, and maybe just a kind of a good thing for Hillcrest to kind of take it on the chin a little bit. But it's not like they're playing bad teams. I mean, these games, it seemed to me this seemed to be like one of the best tournaments skill-wise maybe ever. I mean, like there's not a bad team in this bracket. Like, these are good teams from, around our area and then around, other states. So, sometimes you get some ducks in there, but I don't think there was a duck.
No,
there was no bad team. And, you had dunks, you had pullbacks, turnaround jumpers. It was some good basketball, and it might be tough for Hillcrest, but maybe, that's, you can learn a lot from that. I liked Madison. Madison did real well, but unfortunately Madison fell to Owyhee kind of bad, which, that's a matchup we'd look at later. And Pocatello got a couple wins, and, they're firing on all cylinders right now. And I think that's good, because I felt like maybe last year the Thunder didn't have quite as tough a schedule as they needed to be ready for that battle. And I think this is a big point of emphasis for them to be in this tournament and have some of those tougher games under their belt for the Thunder.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk Madison first. Madison goes 1-2. They beat Sheldon, California, 60-51 in the opening round. So all 3, Madison, Pocatello, Hillcrest, all played Sheldon. Madison and Pokey beat Sheldon. Hillcrest fell in overtime. So take from that what you will. But then Madison lost to Corona Centennial in California. That was the number 1 ranked team in the country, I believe. Or at one point was. They lost that game 58-51. And then they lost to Owyhee in the 3rd place matchup, 85-66. I think Owyhee was very motivated. I think Owyhee wanted the championship on their home floor. They had to settle for the 3rd place game. I think there was some pent up frustrations there from the Owyhee side.
Yeah. I like Madison. I think Madison's good. I think they'll rebound. Wilson, they've just got a lot of good players. Madison does, but Hawaii's good too. I think Hawaii, like you said, probably just wanted to win out when you're hosting.
Yep. And Pokey also went 1-2, right? The Thunder lost to Corona Centennial right away, 76-68. Then they beat Sheldon, California, 68-60. And then they fell to Ironwood, Arizona by just 4, 79-75. So here's my question, Sean. Let's stir the debate a little bit here. Hillcrest goes 0-3. Pokey goes 1-2. Pokey beat one of the teams that Hillcrest lost to. Is there a new favorite in the 4A ranks? It's kind of been Hillcrest because they're the, 2-time defending champs, but has Pokey taken that mantle now?
I mean, if you're voting on paper, I think you'd have to vote them number 1 as of right now. I think you would. I think you'd have to, just on what data and on paper we have now. And yeah, if they have that one common opponent, I know we talked about the other week, we really wanted to see them play. I really wanted to see Hillcrest and Pokey play in this tournament, just one early little glimmer. But it's hard. It's hard to come back. It's hard to come back and defend. Every team is going out to beat you. They're going to give you your best shot. Pocatello they're probably okay with kind of being like number 2. Like, it's fine. We don't want, it's fine. I know how that is. Hillcrest has got that target on the back, and they've got to go out and compete every time. But I think on paper, maybe Pocatello's maybe the best team right now.
Okay. We've got a comment here from RZ. We were talking about that Corona Centennial team from California. They're no joke. He says, Corona had the number 10 ranked player in the nation and another top 100 player as well. So yeah,
Okay.
no surprise that Corona Centennial went there and cleaned up. But the fact that we were able to get a program like Corona Centennial to Idaho, I mean, just speaks volumes about, and why he, like him, hate him, you have to admit that they have helped elevate the quality of competition in the state of Idaho. Definitely. So
yeah, they've kind of, said we've had a standard and we're going to raise that standard for good or bad. And you kind of like it. You like that opponents. You like to see that. And you kind of get some of that. It's good to see where Idaho stands. Like, if they have a top 10 player on their team, they're obviously a top program in the nation. So it's good to see where we stand. Is our basketball good? I mean, how do you know? What's your measure?
Right.
And tournaments like that really kind of help solidify that there's some good basketball, especially in East Idaho.
Yes. There was also, so that was the large school bracket at the Pro Image Sports Classic, and those games were at Hawaii. Rocky Mountain High School, meanwhile, hosted the small school bracket, and West Side went over and competed from East Idaho. The Pirates go 2-1. They beat Kamei in the opening round, 68-37. Then they fall to a very good Ambrose team. This could be, Sean, this is like a state tournament preview type of matchup, right? Ambrose got to the 2A state championship 3 years ago. They've got dynamic shooters. Ambrose wins by 4, 49-45. That dropped Westside into the third place game against Firth. We all know how good Firth is. They won by 2, 66-64. Oh, no. Sorry.
You're on the wrong tournament.
I'm looking at the wrong dates. Westside just beat Firth in regular season play, 66-64. Westside went 1-2 at the tournament, lost to Ambrose in the third place game, beat Kamei. They lost to Baker, Oregon in their opener, 66-40. The Baker Bulldogs are no joke. They got all the way to the really championship, and they were by far the largest team at the small school bracket. Baker was. So Westside's a really good team. They lost to North Fremont in overtime earlier this year. They've beaten Grace by 3. I think the Pirates, even though they're 3-4, I kind of look at them as maybe the leaders in this conference. Bear Lake lost a lot to graduation. They do return some dynamic athletes, but I think Westside's going to be right there too. Yeah,
and Westside going up and playing in a tournament like this is just, I think, so important for their game and for their building into the late season. And they did, and they competed really well. I mean, besides that Baker team, which I think that Baker team could compete maybe in the large school a bracket, but that's how it is sometimes.
Yep. Westside has one more game here before the holiday break. They will travel to Ryrie on Thursday to battle the Bulldogs, and then they'll enjoy their holiday break there. So that was the Pro Image Sports Holiday Classic. Let's talk about the Preston Indian Classic, Sean. Preston hosts this annual tournament every year, and I'll tell you what, they got some really good teams to come over and play this year. Minico, which is no slouch. They got 3 5A schools, Eagle, Rocky Mountain, and Thunder Ridge all came down to play. Shelley came over and competed, and plus Skyview High from Utah and Roy High School from Utah. This was a really fun tournament throughout. Let's start with Preston. They get all the way to the championship before they fall to Eagle, a really good Eagle team that we think is going to be, at the state tournament this year in 5A hoops.
Yeah, I watched the Preston versus Thunder Ridge game, and I've watched Preston a bunch of times this year, and they're just a team they're good, and they're going to find ways to win. And that Eagle game is pretty close, and they've had a lot of, I think, all kind of the losses to 5A teams Preston has had, and one loss to Hillcrest. But they lost to Capital, and it's close. They lost to Eagle. They're like close to kind of breaking it out. And we talked about Pocatello maybe being the number 1 team. Don't sleep on Preston. When Pocatello has to go down to Franklin County later this next year. Those games are no joke. They're really kind of the most fun games to go to, I think, as a fan, just to watch. But I would not sleep on this Preston team either. And yeah, Eagle, I think, is a team we'll see at the end of the year be good as well. So I think Preston's just so close to breaking through with kind of a newer team with all the same last names.
I won't belabor the point, but the fact that Preston and Pocatello, like consensus top 5 teams, potentially top 3 teams in the state of Idaho, one of those teams doesn't even get the chance to compete to go to state. It's just a travesty. Honestly.
Yeah, it has been for the last couple of years, right? And we know it, and there's always some stuff about it, but at the end of the day, you gotta go out and win the games. And Ty Jones will have that team competing in a way that will be able to compete with that team and like Thunder. And it's going to be tough battle, but it's too bad because when I look at that bracket from last year, Preston beats a lot of those teams, but that's how the chips lie sometimes.
Yeah. So Preston goes 2-1 at their tournament. They beat Minico 64-38. They beat Thunder Ridge 62-41 in the semis. They fall to Eagle by 10 in the championship, 53-43. Let's talk about Thunder Ridge. They won their first round matchup with Rocky Mountain by 2, 57-55. A really fun, exciting game. They fall to Preston in the semis, and then they fall to Skyview, Utah in the third place match, 72-55. That Skyview program is legit in Utah, so no shame there. And then Shelley was the hard luck team, man. They go down and they go 0-3. They lose to Skyview, Utah by 2, 46-44. They lose to Roy, Utah by a point, 50-49. And I just think ran out of gas. They lost by 10 to Rocky Mountain, 57-47. So Shelley goes 0-3. They lose the 3 games by a combined 13 points.
Hey, Shelley, again, is a team they're going to build themselves into a spot where they're going to have a chance to win in that district tournament. I mean, they're going to be good. They go out and compete hard all the time. Like I always say, they're the team you don't want to play in that like second round Thursday night in the middle of the week, because they're going to come out and play like it's Friday night for the championship. So yeah, a tough battle, but I think that they're good. And it's going to be a battle. And Thunder Ridge too. I think Thunder Ridge is kind of a new team with like a little newer kind of players, not newer, but kind of a new core playing together. And I've seen them live, and they're kind of getting it together, and they've got some tall guys and Harker. And if they can kind of figure it out, that boy, they could surprise a lot of people as well.
Yeah. I mean, that second spot from District 6 for 4A hoops is right there for the, like we know Hillcrest, you can push them on, but is it Blackfoot? Is it Shelley? Skyline? I think Idaho Falls is sneakily a team everyone should keep an eye on, but that second spot is wide open. So Shelley with a first-year head coach, Keegan Keller, they've kind of been, preparing him. Jim Colson, the former coach, did a really nice job of preparing Keegan.
And Jim Colson is now helping out at Thunder Ridge.
Yeah.
So I saw him the other day. I'm like, he's everywhere, man. He's everywhere.
And he's a great guy. Yeah, he's a great guy. He knows more about basketball than the two of us combined.
Absolutely.
But they did a really nice job of kind of preparing Coach Keller to take over that Shelley program. They're having to navigate without, their best player, Austin Cannon. We talked about that on our last Prepcast, right?
And he'll be coming back eventually, they said.
Yeah.
They said 2 to 3 weeks or so, but once he comes back, watch out.
Yeah, I think Shelley is primed to maybe grab that second spot. Paul Kingsbury, in the words of Shakira, chips don't lie. I'll be honest, I don't remember when we were talking about chips, but I'm sure it was something you said, and I'm sure it was something very insightful, Sean.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't wear my tuxedo shirt, Paul. Sorry.
Oh yeah, gauntlet drop for sure. So yeah, all 3 teams, Thunder Ridge, Preston, and Shelley, competed well at the Preston Indian Classic. What's coming up then on the Holiday Hoops schedule on the boys' side? Well, Sean, it is the East Idaho Shootout taking place again at Skyline, and Rigby and Bonneville and Idaho Falls. And again, we can only give you kind of the opening round matchups because after that, it's all based on, bracket play from there. But man, we've got some really good matchups. Here's what we've got on the opening day, which is Thursday, December 28th. Sugar Salem is going to take on Bonneville. I kind of like Sugar in that matchup tentatively. Sugar is missing a couple of guys that got injured during football season. They're not operating at quite full strength yet, but that'll be an interesting game for sure.
Yeah, Bonneville is kind of having a tough go about it this year, but I like Sugar there. But a good matchup, good first round matchup. It could go either way. You never know when you start these tournaments, what's going to happen the first day.
That's right. You also have in the opening round Rigby. They're going to take on Boise High. That's a battle of programs that are trying to find their footing in leagues that have overwhelming favorites, right? Owyhee and Madison. That'll be a fun matchup. You also have Skyline taking on Lakeland. A Lakeland team that got to state last year could get to state again with Coach Tony Hanna. They're kind of one of the teams in the North we're keeping an eye on. This will be a good measuring stick game for Skyline and Lakeland. You've also got Century taking on Canyon Ridge, Sean, opening round as well.
Yeah, Century, again, a team kind of trying to find their footing, but they got Elias Blackhawk is finally playing pretty well. Zach Gillespie didn't play last year. He came back. He's a kind of a explosive 3-point shooter. So that'll be a good game there. Canyon Ridge, I think Canyon Ridge has won a couple games I was surprised by, and it'll be an interesting matchup for sure.
Yep. And then we've got a couple of matchups with teams and out-of-state opponents, and I think the teams that are in a little bit of a better spot right now are playing those tough out-of-state teams. Highland is going to play Springville, Utah. That'll be a good first matchup for them. Idaho Falls is going to play Spring Creek, Nevada. And then you have Snake River taking on Jackson Hole, Wyoming. That'll be a good matchup for the Panthers as well. And by the way, speaking of Snake Panther boys hoops, a couple weeks ago, Luke Higginson crossed the 1,000-point mark for his career at Snake River High School. So congratulations to Luke Higginson at Snake River also. Yeah,
Snake River 4-2 playing really well too. That's a boys team that maybe doesn't get as much fanfare as the girls team right now, but they're kind of sneakily a good team. I think we'll have to keep an eye on them for sure.
Yeah. We talked about the Parma Holiday Tournament on the girls' side. They're also hosting a boys tournament. And again, it's American Falls going over to compete. They will open with Payette at high noon. That is the game I like American Falls to win. Also on their side of the bracket, Sean, is Skyview and Tri-Valley, a 4A and a 1A T2. I fully anticipate American Falls is going to get to play Skyview, a team that's competing for one of the bids to state from District 3 at the 4A ranks. I think that would be a really good test for American Falls.
Yeah, that will you know where you stand at the end of that. If you make it there, then your team is playing where it needs to be. So that'll be fun to watch.
Oh, you know what? I misread the bracket. That matchup would come in the championship potentially. Okay. Also on Payette's or American Falls side of the bracket is Columbia and the Owyhee JV. Even if you're playing the JV squad from Owyhee, that's going to be a really good test.
Yeah, it's going to be a good game. The Owyhee team's playing really well, so I can't imagine their JV is just as strong. That's a huge school with a ton of kids.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, and then the last tournament we've got to talk about, Sean, is an out-of-state affair. Hillcrest is traveling down to the Classic at Damien. This is held in Laverne, California. Owyhee has gone to this tournament the last couple of years, so this is for the absolute best of the best. And so Hillcrest is going to go down and compete. They will start with Rancho Christian from California. They will play that game at 2:00 Pacific time on December 27th. But, Hillcrest may take a couple of more L's along the way here, but they will be very battle tested, no doubt.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of Rigby football this year. Rigby had a lot of losses, and everyone kind of was like, "Oh, Rigby's not good." But I think in the end, that's going to be good for that team to get where they need to be. I mean, Hillcrest didn't start out at full strength this year, so I think they're still trying to get all those pieces to fit where they need to be. But we know they're good. They've got great players, Ike Sutton, Isaac Davis. They're no slouch, but to go compete at, kind of more of a national level will really get them ready to go. I think the harder your schedule is, really the better you're going to come out of it when it comes later in the season.
Yeah, this Rancho Christian team, I'm looking at them, Sean. They're from Temecula, California. They've got 12 varsity players. 10 of the 12 are 6 feet or taller. I mean, their point guards are like 6'3". They've got 6'5" wings. And Isaac Davis, bring your lunch pail, because they've got a 6'9" senior inside in Sam Galindo. And then they've got a 6'7" sophomore that comes in off the bench. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting opening matchup here.
I'm glad we don't compare height, because I don't think Idaho would rank anywhere in height.
For sure. Yeah, no doubt. Hey, we do have one more comment here from Shannon Wilson, the Avista tournament at Lewis and Clark State College. Yes, Shannon, we will be breaking down that tournament in full on our North Idaho Prepcast, which is coming up in about 20 minutes or so here on Idaho.
I mean, I'll do it because we know Ryan can't. So,
right. There's going to be some good, Lapway is going to be there. Kendrick on the girls' side, Lapway, Prairie, really good matchups with some interesting teams in that Avista tournament. But Sean, in terms of East Idaho, we've got our plate is full of holiday hoop action. No doubt.
Yeah. Just trying to keep track of it all and all the tournaments. I feel like there's many more holiday tournaments than there used to be. I feel like there used to be like a couple, and now there's one for everything. So I like it though. It's good. I think it's good for the teams. It's just hard to keep track of it. So if there's anything good you hear about, go ahead and hit me up on the X right there, Sean Kane 182. I love to get those highlights. We love to get the videos. Big time performances. Just let us know, because we'd love to highlight it here on East Idaho.
Yes, if there is a team, a story, a player that you think isn't getting enough love and attention, you can hit up Sean at Sean Kane 182. You can send me an email, Brandon at IdahoSports.com, and we'll break it down for you here on the East Idaho Prepcast. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Again, we are going to take next week off for the holidays, which means we will see you back here in the year 2024. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year, everybody. For Sean Kane, I'm Brandon Baney, and we'll see you in 2 weeks on the East Idaho Prepcast on IdahoSports.com.